Alrighty, and welcome back to the Nick at Night podcast. We're here with Coach Mo. We just have a couple questions going over the homecoming game.
Yeah.
King, if you want to start us off, that'd be very helpful.
Yeah. All right. So to start off, could you explain the highlights of the game?
I think the highlights of the game obviously are winning the homecoming game anytime you can do it. In terms of play, we gave up a kickoff return right off the bat. That was the third kickoff return that Slinger hit on our program in as many games that week, which was fairly frustrating as a coach. And it was an opportunity for our kids to look at themselves internally and make a decision that night on, are we going to buck up and get after it, or are we going to fold up shop and go home? And one thing that I'm proud of the boys doing right off the bat was answering that bell and coming back and fighting through that game. You know, we only gave up that touchdown and gave up field goal. You know, we got things to clean up on the kick return, but our defense only gave up 98 yards total against a 5-1 Slinger team that's only lost to Homestead, and they lost to Homestead by 3, and a team that's been moving the ball really, really well, putting up a lot of points. So that way, that was awesome. We ran some different offensive sets. We asked Sawyer Brenneman to play a little bit of wide receiver and move some guys around, and guys stepping up offensively allowed us to stress them out horizontally and vertically, and being able to do that and getting some big plays really put the team together and made it a team win.
Awesome. So one question I have is, how does the new field give you an advantage versus the old one?
You know, I think advantage-wise, and I talk to Mr. Dix about this all the time, you guys are doing a tremendous job in terms of bringing pep and really bringing the gamesmanship up a level. And it's not a quiet setting. It's not a venue that I think teams want to walk into and you know, say, all right, this is something we want to go into and we can win pretty easily. It's a different vibe. It's a different setting in terms of, we can talk about the field. I think at some point turf is turf, but being able to do what we can do and what this school district and what this community has offered us in terms of the technology and the way that this setup is on Friday nights allows us to have a top-notch facility that's going to provide us the opportunity to be successful throughout 4 quarters.
So do you think that the Knights are more intimidating now that we have like a newer field? Because we have like the programmable light shows, we have the music, we have the actual scoreboard. Do you think that gives us more of like an intimidation factor versus walking in?
I think it definitely gives us a venue that amplifies what we want to do. And coming in as an opponent, you really have to take a look at what we're offering. I think the way the setup is, you know, collectively the light shows, you guys being able to cut between and do some live action on the video scoreboard, and really making it an interactive setting changes what, you know, I think it highlights what the sport's about, but it changes what high school sports can do here. It's something that no other school can do. So when they come in, I don't want to call it a distraction, but it's definitely a different vibe and it's a different setting that they have to get used to.
Yeah, I was about to say the same thing. Like they're not used to that, so it's going to be like more advantage for us.
Certainly, I think usually you're used to that pep band, you know, kind of bringing the vibe. Nicolet's able to do that in a completely, you know, not that our band doesn't, but it's a factor on top of what a band can do in terms of the light shows. Interacting with fans, being able to put video up on the scoreboard, live action, and being able to do that so quickly, in a turnaround where we had that video scoreboard ready about 6 weeks ago, and you guys are rocking and rolling with it. It's a tribute to what you guys are doing here on your side.
There's definitely still more that's gonna be done and will be done. We have like the programmable lights coming up that actually go to the music, which is gonna be interesting, as well as there's always gonna be more graphics being made. There's always gonna be more music that we're gonna have. We're gonna incorporate more of like the players. Hopefully, what we might be doing is we might be setting up the TriCast broadcast system, which will allow us to hopefully live switch from camera to camera in game, which it's going to elevate everything.
Yeah.
And it's going to be super cool. So I know that the season's coming to a close with our last game coming up on Friday the 7th.
Last home game, yep.
Yeah.
So we got Whitefish Bay this week, tomorrow, and then we'll be at Hartford the following week. Yep.
Gotcha. So how do you think we can improve the team after this game?
We sat down on Monday, and one of the things that we always have Mindset Monday as a program, and there's always, I wouldn't call it a theme for the week because it's what we do, and Mindset Monday is really bringing us back to, hey, where are our heads at as we come back from the weekend, and the last 3 weeks have been about internal standard versus external noise. So what are we doing to help better ourselves, and what voices are we listening to? Are we listening to what's going on inside the football program, or are we worried about what's being said on social media, or what we're worrying about, or who we're playing? I mean, the things that we can't control, and we need to let those go, and the things that we can't control, we have to have a high internal standard for. So in terms of where we're headed, I think these two games are really going to identify to our athletes and to our fans and our community, where we're at in terms of what our standard is for this season.
That's a really good point. So our team is super strong in defense, but what other things might there be that we are good at and we're hoping to continue that like same level of skill?
Our offensive line has been improving every single week. We've been able to run the ball. I mean, it's easy to see when we get out there offensively that Ben Ott is the guy that we're looking to go to. I think last week Adrian kind of came out of his shell as a wide receiver, made some big plays. You saw Tyler Griffin catch a big pass in the end zone. You're seeing our outside wide receivers and our skill guys in that sense starting to fill their roles and being able to do that. I think we've been fairly one-dimensional with our run game, and expanding out to the pass game becomes important. You saw Sawyer catch 2 passes last week. So in terms of offensively where we're going, we always try to stretch the field vertically with the speed that we have, and then stretch it horizontally, and then open up some running lanes. That's kind of the system that we have here at Nicolet. But really having our O-line take pride in what they're doing and getting guys off the line of scrimmage is the next set where we need to go.
So, do you have anything?
Yeah, I was about to say, like, do you think the team is like doing way better than last year, or like, what are your thoughts on the team right now?
I think we came into the season with high expectations, and you saw kind of a roller coaster of a season. You start out hot. We win the first 2 games pretty handily. And then when you walk into the North Shore, and this is year in and year out, this conference is you're going to see guys fly around and hit each other. You go back to that West Bend East game, and that was a pretty violent game. That was a game where guys were hitting back and forth, and I think that was one where our team came in thinking we were going to get a different outcome, and then looking at that and having to come back from Homestead, where I think Homestead snuck away with one, and they have a kicker who made that happen, and we didn't finish plays. We didn't finish that game we needed to. And then coming back to Cedarburg and really, kind of losing 3 in a row and having us sit back and come back together and say, guys, where are we at? What is our – and that's kind of where that internal standard came back from, and saying, hey, where are we going to be? Where are we now, and where do we need to go? Getting that get-right game with West Bend West and doing what we needed to do there, shutting them out, and winning by a running clock was important. And then coming back against a very strong Slinger team and getting that win, kind of realigned where we need to go. You always want to be playing your best football at the end of the season. So these 2 games coming out of here and refocusing after a big homecoming win for a crosstown rival becomes important. And then finishing that season strong in an away game in a setting where Hartford has a lot of pride in football, is going to tell us, we win those 2 games and we should be looking at hosting a playoff game. So we got big things going, and hosting a playoff game for you guys is pretty good too. That's a pretty awesome setting to be able to have too. So we're working on it for you.
It most definitely will be. I know that the football team currently is very senior strong, to say the least. We have a lot of seniors on the team.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think next year is going to look like? Because we know Ben Ott is going to be gone. We know Adrian Thomas is going to be gone. Sawyer is going to be a senior now, so he's still good and perfectly fine. We have Evan as a senior as well. But how do you think the team will function with like Ben Ott and Adrian Thomas graduating off?
We're really concentrating on this year. I do. Long-term plans. We always have a plan for every kid. That's a promise I make every individual on the football team. We have some good young talent at that JV level. Tyler Griffin's a sophomore working for us. You got Carter Zutoff, who stepped up in a big way against West Bend West. So, I'm talking about guys who have gotten some good minutes in terms of sophomore kids. You look at Ben Mittag, who has now played the last 3 games at middle linebacker and done a heck of a job. And walking into a Cedarburg game, that's a tough team to play against, and he's really filled a big role for us that way. And you see that JV team, that JV1 team that suits up with us every week. Those guys are in on kickoff. We got a couple guys in on kick return. There's always opportunities for our sophomores to see what Friday night speed is like, what the settings are like, and we do that on purpose so that it's not new, so that novelty is worn off their first game, junior year. So as they are on the sideline, this is a typical day for us, because next year we're going to have to go in, and those guys are going to have to step up in a big way. Those guys, that sophomore group works really, really hard. They have a tremendous amount of brotherhood amongst themselves, which is fun to see. And it, as a coach, that's something that's always a concern, is are these guys working for each other in that group? I definitely see them working for each other, which is awesome.
I guess I was like, how is it like coaching so far?
Like over the 7, I think I've been here
Over, like,
7
this
years.
season. No,
this season?
Just like specifically.
Like I said, we came in with high expectations. I think you're always looking for an identity for your team, and it took us a while to get there. I think those first 2 games, I don't want to say they were easy games, but those were games where we were still trying to figure out who we were, but we had enough put together that, we could overcome mistakes we were making. And once you get in the North Shore, you got to play darn near perfect football in order to win games. And so as we've been improving, it's been fun to be a part of, to watch these guys really work, identify areas of need, continue to focus on those, and continue to improve. So,
Speaking of like, how have you think like the team has grown like since they were like JV, like freshmen?
This group, offensive line-wise, has grown tremendously. I don't want to discount the skill guys. Adrian's been playing since his freshman year. He overcame an injury his sophomore year, had a big game against Whitefish Bay last year. He's playing 2 ways again this year. Ben was a starting quarterback as a sophomore. DeMarcus was playing as a sophomore. You look at some of these guys who are having really good senior years, and those were expected because this is their 3rd year, and you expect seniors to be seniors. What I'm really proud of in terms of the growth that this class has had since their sophomore year is at that O-line. Max has stepped up playing both ways. You look at an Owen Kelowna-Hea who was injured 8 games last year, came back and stepped up in a big way against Hartford week 9 to get us that win to make us the playoffs. So that was his first game back playing. He hurt himself during 2-a-days, and seeing him work hard over the offseason, and now him being a 2-way player and stepping in when Griggs got injured his hamstring, and playing both ways. So you take a look at where football's played, and it's played on the line, and I'm proud of the development of that offensive and defensive line over the past 3 years. And it's something that I think Nicolay, you hear from the outside, the Nicolay's always going to have athletes, Nicolay's always going to have speed, but they're going to hurt at the line. Well, us making a point collectively as a unit to take pride in the offensive and defensive line is where we need to be in order to compete in this conference.
To kind of touch on like what you're talking about with like JV and the freshmen, what might be a message you want to give to incoming freshmen and incoming people who might want to join the football team? Because I know football is quite intimidating and people might be a little bit nervous to join such a team.
You know, I think when you look at like why do you play football, there's a brotherhood. There's a brotherhood that isn't found anywhere else. It's one of the last sports, if not the last sport, that takes a community, that still takes a community to run. You know, you can play 7-on-7 football, but you can't play club football. You can't play club tackle football and do that. You can go to your skill sessions, you can do those things, but ultimately it's a sport where you work year round for 9 guaranteed games. And those games are extremely public. That feedback you get is extremely public. And it's in a world where we're always looking to feel good, where we're worried about, you know, what messaging am I getting on social media and how can I make sure I'm feeling good. It's something that you get to go through with a bunch of people, with a bunch of friends and guys who are working hard, who are working towards a common goal that isn't easily replicated in today's society when we can find different ways to make sure that I feel good or I'm feeling, you know, I'm getting what I need out of this. Self-sacrifice for a more common good is still the messaging that football can bring out. And it's not always fun, you know, in terms of am I feeling good all the time, but it is fun knowing that we're working together and getting after it. So I think that's the biggest message is, you know, working towards that common goal. And the one thing when I talk to kids who say, hey, I want to play a single sport or I want to specialize in this, you can play basketball for the rest of your life. I played baseball till I was 30 plus years old. You can play volleyball the rest of your life. Football is a finite sport where you are given, you know, if you're lucky like an Adrian, you're given 36 opportunities, 36 Friday nights. If you're playing your junior and senior year, you work your way, you know, in that program style idea, you get 18 opportunities in your life to play under Friday Night Lights. And when you look back, you're like, well, 18's a lot. Well, not for all the Friday nights you're going to go through for the rest of your life. And so that's something that, you know, when you go back to your first question, what's the field do? I mean, man, that rivals Division III stuff when you guys are doing what you're doing and us on Friday nights and the sun's going down. I think there's a lot of components to football that people miss when they're not realizing all that goes into it and then what a Friday night means to, you know, for those 3 hours.
Yeah, like dig into those components, right? I heard you talk about like a lot about social media and how like it's affecting them. Like he'd go more into that.
You know, I think I got Facebook and just to see my nieces and nephews and I think the biggest struggle in terms of social media is that again it's about feeling good. Social media, you know, I teach marketing here and we talk about business and what social media means and you know what is really the purpose of social media is to market products to the user, the end user is really what it is. So it's always going to want to make you feel good. But working through where you're trying to get your attention from becomes very important. You know, if your attention is coming from outward noise, then that's where your attention is going to go. If your attention is coming from, you know, your internal standard, am I doing what I need to do, when I need to do it, how I need to do it, then that social media becomes something that could be a tool instead of where I need to get my validation from, you know.
And then one final question. I know you guys are going to the playoffs, correct?
Oh, we got to get at least one of these 2 games. Two games guarantees us. It's a weird setup in the state. Football's the only one where you have to qualify in. If you have a 500 record in conference or better, you automatically qualify. This next one will put us at 3-3, and with the 2 non-conference wins, we should eke in. And when we win both of these games, we're 4-3 in conference and 6-3 overall, and that would guarantee us in. And that I would anticipate that would get us a home game.
So, what are your Like, what are you hoping for? What is your goal for the playoffs?
Well, I mean, let's get there first. If we finish this game against Whitefish Bay and win this game, and then we go to Hartford and we play our best ball going into the playoffs, then I have high expectations going into the playoffs in terms of we're playing our best football, getting a home game against a team that that we outrank. Whether or not that means anything is another story because we had Kaukauna as a 7th ranked team, winning our region last year. But you always want to be playing your best football at the end of the year because it's going to give you the best opportunity for a postseason run.
Alrighty. You have anything else?
Well, I really got one more question.
Yeah.
The last one's like, what player do you think is doing the best right now? Just it's kind of like a hard. I know it's gonna be like a hard one because you're a coach.
I mean, when you talk about individual player, it's on a week to week basis. I think people want me to immediately go to stats. My best players are the players who put the team first, and it sounds cliche, but you look at it, and I think originally we were talking about that homecoming game. You look at a kid. We expect Ben to be a solid performer on a daily basis. We expect that out of him. He expects it out of himself. When you look at a Sawyer Brenneman, we say, hey, you're going to play wide receiver a little bit, and he gives that up and moves over there and makes 2 big catches. That's awesome. And then he gets hurt, and you have Sam Schultz, who was playing safety for 5 of the 7 games we've been playing, and he was out of the lineup. And he steps in and rips off, I think, a 24-yard run the first time he gets in the game after Sawyer goes down. I think when you look at, like, who's playing the best, well, Sam came in and sent a message to our team and to Slinger saying, hey, man, next man up, here we go. And so when you look at if you're looking for stats, I mean, you can check Sports and kind of figure out who's putting up stats. But, football takes 5 offensive linemen, 6 offensive linemen blocking for Ben, a guy snapping and catching the ball. It takes a defensive line getting stops and keeping short fields.
It takes the team.
Yeah, and so I think for me, as a coach, to answer your question, what makes me most proud and what makes me appreciate the players the most is the guys who are in there ready to go when their name is called, and we have a plethora of those guys. I mentioned Owen Colonahea, going both ways. You see, it's just those are the things that are going to make good football teams, and those are the things that make it easy to coach and make it fun to coach. And when we're putting that team first, I joke with the guys, and I tell the guys, you always think you're 1 in a million because your parents tell you that, or social media tells you that you're 1 in a million. And I said, but really on that football field, you're 1 of 11. You that's it. You need those 11, and so that's you're part of a collective group. So I'm proud of a lot of guys in a lot of different ways, and I hope to continue to be throughout the rest of this year.
Awesome. We want to thank you for coming out and taking the time during the day to come out here and talk to us about this. We really appreciate it. This has been Nick at Night with Coach Mo.
Awesome.
And that's it.